Today's text comes from John chapter 2, verses 1 through 11. Hear the word of the Lord. On the third day there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and Jesus' mother was there. Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine gave out, Jesus' mother said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "What is that to me and to you, woman? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now standing there were 6 stone jars for Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus said to them, "Fill the jars with water." And they filled them up to the brim. He said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the chief steward." So they took it. When the steward tasted the water that had become wine and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, the steward called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves the good wine first, and then the inferior wine after the guests have become drunk. But you have kept the good wine until now." Jesus did this, the first of his signs, in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. It was not so long ago that I first heard the Polish proverb, "Not my circus, not my monkeys." Since that time, it seems to have become ubiquitous in the U.S. The volatile or problematic situation of at hand is not mine. It has no origin with me. It is not my responsibility. Therefore, I take no responsibility for cleaning up the mess. It would seem at first blush that this is exactly Jesus' response to Mary, his mother. I am not responsible for something I did not help create. I did not usher in the problem. Therefore, I take no action to step in and resolve the difficulty. Well, that's what Jesus' words seem to say in the beginning. And yet then Jesus goes on and does something that seems contrary to what he had just stated. "Woman, what concern is that to me and to you?" Jesus sounds an awful lot like he was turning Mary down, absolving himself of any and all responsibility for their host's dilemma. After all, "Not my circus, not my monkeys," seems to sum up what we would expect any guest to say in the context. Jesus and his disciples and Mary were not hosts. They had no position of authority at the festival. This was a wedding feast, and the expectation is that they would come and participate in the festivities and celebrate and make merry with the families who were uniting their children in marriage. They had no responsibility here other than to participate, to partake in what the family had provided for their enjoyment and merrymaking. And yet Mary steps in on seeing a problem and comes to Jesus and tells him they have no wine, with the underlying intention that you must do something about it. Growing up for many years in Brazil and living in Mexico, I learned several choice words that would seem to apply to Mary. One of them, metiche, means someone who butts in and gets involved, a busybody who sticks her nose in where it is not wanted. That seems to be Mary's major characteristic here. She was not called to solve the problem. She had no responsibility for the matter. Nobody asked for her assistance. And yet, though she had no responsibility, and though the problem was not hers, she jumps in and pushes her son forward, saying, "You need to solve this problem for them." Jesus responds, "Not my circus, not my time." And Mary charges forward and she calls the servants together and says, "Do whatever he tells you to do." That's kind of sticking your head out, isn't it? Who was Mary that these servants should listen to her? What authority did she have for coming into the midst of this social dilemma and problem? She was asked by no one of the marriage party. She had no standing or authority to tell the servants to obey anyone, much less her son. And yet she orders them, saying, "Do whatever he tells you to do." And only then does Mary seem to back away from this circus over which she has no defined responsibility, no authority, no claim, no position. But she backs away now from this role of busybody who interferes with this social dilemma and the chaos at hand, and allows Jesus to act. From what he has said, we would expect Jesus to do nothing. And yet John continues the story. He tells us that after brushing off Mary's words, saying, "My time is not yet come," he goes on to elaborate for us. And in that elaboration, we understand that perhaps what Jesus is talking about is that it is not yet his time to be revealed before all of Israel as Messiah, as the locus of God's salvation and redemption of the nation. It is not yet time for him to take center stage and own the circus around him and allow the spotlight to be focused upon him before he has had a chance to even define who Messiah is and what Messiah is in his understanding. And yet Jesus does not absolve himself from any and all responsibility in the matter. He does not simply say, "I did not cause the problem, and therefore I will not lift a finger to assist." He does not say, "No one with authority over the circus at hand has asked me to intervene." He simply steps forward to the servants and says, "Go and draw water and fill these 6 stone jars." That doesn't seem like an awful lot. There are few words here in Jesus' utterance. I don't know exactly where these servants went to draw the water, but I'm pretty sure the well was not in the courtyard where the marriage festivities were being celebrated. They had to have walked some distance, carrying water gallon by gallon to fill up, at least from John's text, some 120 plus gallons of water, filling up these stone jars to the very brim. Seems rather like a miracle to me that they would have given Jesus' words and Mary's words the slightest bit of attention, much less causing them to initiate a good deal of back-breaking labor. Jesus was not really yet a known quantity. He had been baptized by John, and his disciples had begun following him simply on the basis of John's categorizing Jesus as the one who was to come. Jesus had begun teaching and preaching, but as yet had not done anything meriting the kind of obedience that we see described here. And yet, as the servants complete the task of filling these 6 jars with water up to the brim, they report to Jesus that they have finished the task assigned. And he tells them to dip some out and take it to the steward of the feast. And Jesus steps back away from the limelight. He never enters into the focus of the party going around him. He never allows anyone to call attention to himself. He is not the busybody interfering. And yet, as the need before him is made evident, he steps up to the plate to meet that need and back away. Too often we are of two minds about an issue that is not of our creation. Either we say, not my circus, not my monkeys, I will not be involved, I will assume no responsibility for this mess that I have done nothing to create. Or we step in saying, well, this may not be my circus and not my monkeys, but I am going to step in and bring the limelight of the circus to focus upon me. I will do. And people will obey me, and they will follow my orders and focus their attention on my words. As I give whatever level of generosity or alms, I will make sure that others utilize my gifts in a manner consistent with my will and my desire as I offer them. We like to attach strings to our gifts to others. We like to control how our actions will be used and abused and interpreted. We like to control what others might do with the things that we have supposedly given freely. Jesus does none of this. It is not yet his time. It is not the moment for him to be cast into the limelight and become the center feast of the merrymaking and partying going on around him. He is unwilling to call attention to himself and off the purpose of the merrymaking. Rather, he provides what is lacking and steps back, that the festivities might go on uninterrupted. This is grace. This is mercy. This is what it means to offer assistance, to grant welcome, to fill the needs that come to our attention, not in a way that draws more attention to ourselves and our own issues, but rather allowing others to rejoice in the ongoing celebration of life without our gifting appear as an interference in any shape, form, or fashion. Jesus does not excuse himself from any and all responsibility here. While he is not responsible for having created the situation of need, he is coming into the situation an offering of his gifts freely, no strings attached, that the celebration of someone else's circus might go on, joining in the festivities of life and allowing others the opportunity to rejoice. When Jesus responds to the circus and monkeys before him, he makes no demands. He offers a way forward. He presents his gifts and enables the festivities to go on. Can we likewise trust others to be faithful stewards of the gifts we might bestow? If we can't, are they really gifts, or are they attempts to control?